All right, hey guys, what is going on? It is Intelligent Cycle back here with another stream and talking about yesterday's game between the Storm and the Chicago Sky. The Storm won by 10 over the Chicago Sky. They move on to 22 and 19. And what I saw yesterday was a microcosm of from the Storm's case, and they to me did not the Storm really did not play all that great throughout the entirety of the second half. They kind of was letting their foot off the gas a little bit, and mainly the Chicago Sky. If the Chicago Sky really, and I'm gonna talk about them real quick. See, if the Chicago Sky really had shooters and scorers around them, in my opinion, they would actually really do their thing. And you can't have games where Camilla is only scoring 9 points and having 10 rebounds. You can't have games where Ariel Atkins, Rachel Banham, Rebecca Allen, and Kia Nurse are not even in the double digits. Only Angel Reese and Michaela Onyenware was the only two people in double figures. You cannot if you the Sky really needs like a lot of wing players, and they need some shooters to go along with Angel and Camilla. And Camilla, we don't know if they had the talent around them. I want to see how Camilla would do with the talent and supporting cast around her, and also around Angel. Because if they had the talent, I think they would actually do a lot of better and do a lot more wonders, man. Because yeah, you just can't have games where mainly your bench and your starting starting point guard is only getting in the single digits. That's just not gonna get it done. It's just not gonna cut it, and that's just a big problem. Teaspoons, just the way he's done, the way excuse me, Tyler Marr, excuse me, the way that he's pretty much coaching this team, which he's not even really coaching this team with the kind of confidence, giving them the kind of confidence and ammo. They're not really doing much wonders, and the front office really needs to look at a lot of things moving forward, and they just really need to look at their overall roster and really look at things with a clear mind, because what they got right now is just terrible. They need to really do an overhaul and a change in the lineup. But they really had shooters around them. Like I was just telling my guy who was covering the WNBA last night in a live stream, they need to have shooters and scorers around them. If they do, they will be a lot better than what they are, what their record is showing. And for the Seattle Storm, from what I saw yesterday, they definitely fed Nneka Gumake. She was just getting towards the basket, getting towards the cup. She was really doing her thing. Everybody, pretty much all the starters, was in double figures, so that was the main thing that really kept them going. Gabby was all right. Brittany Sykes, was in double figures last night. She played a really good game. I like her shot making and shot creating. And Skylar, she was cool. But the problem with Seattle, like I said, if they get into the playoffs, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Oh, hey, what's going on, Glock boys? What's going on? But yeah, if they get into the postseason and they have the second half that they had, which they were very sporadic and very all over the place, if they had those kind of games in the postseason, which if I'm looking at the playoff outlook, which we'll get to, they will be facing off against the Las Vegas Aces. They would get stomped in the first round. They would absolutely get stomped, because that is not the way to go throughout the postseason. It's too much, I would say, too much one-on-one isolation basketball. And somehow, some way, with the kind of starting lineup that they would have, you would think they would be good at rebounding. But they have a hard time really grabbing offensive rebounds, and defensively they have a hard time keeping on the boards. They really have a hard time doing it. The only thing that really is good with them is they have really good on-ball pressure defensively from Skylar and Brittany and of course Mackenzie Holmes. The rest of them, and Erica Wheeler, when she gets hot and open at the three-point line in the corner, she really gets hot. They really are good in that case. But when it gets to the point where their on-ball pressure and everything starts to flow, and when they get into transition, they kind of start to falter a bit. And when it gets to closing out games in the fourth quarter, they really have a hard time finding out who's going to be that closer in the clutch moments in the fourth quarter. And they really find a hard time really putting it together, as far as just really holding it down in the fourth quarter, like as far as finding out that closer for the girls, who's gonna really close and who's gonna really take over and get the winning shot and really find a way to really defensively get enough stops and containment and rally to the ball and rally to get rebounds to get and gain possessions and gain momentum. That's going to be Seattle Storm's really their biggest problem. And it's too much one-on-one isolation basketball from what I've seen. I don't really like the way they played that part of their game. So that would be the main thing. Is a huge concern for me. Oh, hey, Hollow Rams, what's going on? You said NBA or NFL. I'm picking the NBA. It's because I follow that. I followed that for all my life, all for a long time. I know about both, but I really would pick the NBA because that's just the sport that I've followed and covered for a long periods of time. You know, going back to the 90s, the late 90s, even the mid to late 90s and the early 2000s. So that's just what I prefer overall. But thanks for asking that question. Really appreciate that. But yeah, that's just my thoughts about that game. But let's talk about the game of the night. Let's talk about this, man, because I really saw this last night, and boy, it was entertaining to watch. And early on in the first half between the Liberty and the Phoenix Mercury, man. Let's just talk about this. The thing that I saw from the Liberty that was really the main concern for me if they get into the postseason is, and if the playoffs would start in the first round, they would be facing up against each other, which is actually unironic. So to me, the Liberty's problem is they have a hard time going, and they can go like 4 or 5 minutes without scoring a bucket. They went last night in the third. They hadn't scored since the last 4 minutes and 35 seconds left in the third quarter. It wasn't until dang near 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter where they finally got their first bucket. You know, and the reason why they went 7 long minutes without a possession, without a bucket, is just because their offense could get stagnant. They have really good players. I mean, Emma Messaman she's really good, and of course Brianna, Natasha Cloud. They got some good players, and they also missing Sabrina Ionshoe. That's another thing why it really was another big problem. JJ really didn't do all that great last night either. When she tried to get into the paint, you saw DeWanna Bonner, you saw everybody collapsing. Sabali and Alyssa Thomas, they all collapsed and kind of just took her out of the paint a lot. And Natasha Cloud just couldn't get into it. I mean, she did okay, but she really couldn't get into a rhythm like that. Stephanie really couldn't get into a rhythm either. It was just, to me, the Phoenix Mercury all the way around. Their team was just incredible. They was banking all 3-pointers all over the place. Kalea Copper is an absolute beast. You know, she's been that way. That's why they pretty much was one of the biggest reasons why the Chicago Sky won that championship back in 21. She pretty much was just all over it. Alyssa Thomas, Satu Sabali, they was really dominant. Natasha Mack on the rebound, and she was just incredible out there. She really did a good job. Like I said, DeWanna Bonner really held it down, hit a couple 3-pointers, big 3-pointers. Everybody just really did their thing last night for Phoenix. I really was impressed with the way they was withstanding their own crowd and withstanding the pressure facing up against the defending champions from last year. So they really withstand and withhold a lot of things going back to what's going on. Well, going back to getting down early on in the second quarter by 5, and then they just continued on in the third and the fourth quarter. They just completely just took over. And in the fourth quarter, there was just nothing that the Liberty could do. They try to shoot their way back into the game, shooting a bunch of long 3-pointers, long bombs. Then, you know, they got Bree involved in the paint a little bit. They try to move JJ in the paint. It just didn't work to me, just didn't do much because the Phoenix Mercury was just on point. They were just on point overall. Like from the 3-point line, they was getting a lot of good shots inside the perimeter and the twos. Yeah, the Phoenix Mercury was just all over it last night, and I really, really enjoyed that game in the second half for them. And Kalea Copper is an absolute beast. She just took over, man. She really just took over. She's definitely one of the better guards, definitely in today's game. And as of right now, man, like she's just on fire. She's just an absolute beast, man. And love watching her game and love watching her play. She just really has it going on. Like she was knocking down inside perimeter shots. She hit like at least about 4 out of 6 3-pointers. She was like 9 for 17 from the field. She was just absolutely on point. So yeah, really good win by the Mercury last night. Really, really appreciate what was going on with them. Really good basketball from them, and just ball movement and ball rotation was just on point. All right, so let's look at the playoff outlook for the WNBA, projected for the WNBA to 2025. Now, if the playoffs would start in the regular season would end today, these would be the matchups. So you would have the Minnesota Lynx against the Golden State Valkyries. You would have the Vegas Aces against the Seattle Storm, Atlanta Dream versus the Indiana Fever, and the Phoenix Mercury, and of course the last night's game between the Mercury and the Liberty. You would have all of those in the first round. Now, if this would end today, I'm not saying that this would be the whole lineup because we still got at least about maybe 9, 8 or 9 or so more games left to go. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, I think the Valkyries and the Fever play today, if I'm not mistaken. And the Fever won last night against the Sparks. Odyssey Sims did her thing in that. But let's just say if the playoffs would start right now, who would I be taking? To me, the Lynx and the Valkyries, I would probably more than likely go to Lynx. And I would say they would probably win it in like 3 or 4 games. I would probably pick them over the Valkyries. I just think that they just have a lot more talent right now than the Valkyries. I just see them pretty much taking it. Now you have the Mercury and the Liberty, and the outlook of that, I'm gonna probably go with the Liberty, and I think they'll probably go to 5 games. I think the Liberty will probably take them in that. The Vegas Aces against the Seattle Storm, I got the Vegas Aces pretty much sweeping them. I think they pretty much are just gonna be too much, especially in the postseason. They're just a different animal, a different beast. So these women will definitely be on point. Asia is a different person in the playoffs, along with Chelsea Gray and Jackie Young. They're different. They're different. These girls play differently in the playoffs. So I'm gonna probably go with them against the Storm. I think Seattle's gonna have a hard time when it comes to rebounding, and also when it comes to size. I think the matchups will favor them. Will favor the Aces. So I got them winning that one in a sweep. And then the Dream. Now this is probably gonna be the matchup right here that's most people are gonna look eyes towards. And I probably don't think Kayla Clark's gonna be back at all for the postseason. She's probably gonna be sitting out for the remainder of the time because there's not gonna be any reasons to really return, especially she's missed like 26, 27 games because of re-aggravated with that groin injury. So that's gonna be a thing that's gonna be a big of a problem for them. But if I had to look at this matchup and who I'm going with, I'm gonna go right now. I'm gonna go with the Atlanta Dream. I think the Dream will probably take this one. I can see them winning this in 4. I think the Fever will probably steal 1 game, but I just think the Atlanta Dream, their offensive game, it's going to be too much for the Fever. Their defense, to me, Indiana's defense is going to be a bit of an issue, especially with Natasha Howard and Leah Boston, not protecting the paint because they might draw them out. Brianna Jones can get in there and, she can shoot outside shots. Alicia and the rest of them. And then also people coming off the bench, Pow, all them. They're going to be a little bit too much for Indiana to handle. And plus, Indiana has so many injuries riddled throughout the year. They had to sign at least 2 more guards in free agency because their main starters has been out for the remainder of the year with Sydney Colson and Ari. So that's going to be another problem. Is the guard play is going to be a problem for them. And also defensively, in transition, that's another problem going to be for Indiana. That would be a huge problem for them if they face up against the Dream. That's going to be a big issue. So I will take the Atlanta Dream in that matchup. Now, looking at it right now, we got the Lynx and the Liberty. I will take the Minnesota Lynx in that one. I just don't think the Liberty have enough right now as far as. And let's just say if Sabrina returns, I think it could be interesting, but I still would take the Lynx. I think they're just overall a better team, and they could go 7-8 deep. And then you got the Aces. You got the Aces versus the Atlanta Dream. I'm going to go with I'm gonna go with the Aces in this one. Again, it's gonna be an interesting matchup. So, and looking at it now, you would have the Minnesota Lynx and the Vegas Aces overall in the championship. I think this is the year that the Lynx get over, and I think the Lynx will probably take it and get the championship over the Vegas Aces in 6 games. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Lynx in that one. But it's gonna be very interesting to see if the playoff outlook will do that way. Now, this could be a factor where Indiana could fall to the AC and faced up against them, or Seattle could move up. If Golden State ends up winning today, they will probably move and be in Indiana spot. So depending on the outlook of what could happen today in Sunday's games today, but if this is what the playoffs is looking like, that would be my predictions for right now. So tell me what you guys think about the playoff outlook. If it would end today, who would you be taking to win it all and why? And also give me your guys' thoughts about the Mercury and the Liberty, and of course the Storm and the Chicago Sky game last night. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I will be back for another video because I forgot to do this last night, but it's a movie review I forgot to do. The movie directed by Darren Aronofsky is called Caught Stealing, so I will do that video later on. But thank you guys for watching. I'm out. Peace. And like it, share, and subscribe. And thank you guys so much for that. I'm out.